The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
After months of threatening to ban crypto trading, India has made a compromise, announcing instead there will be a 30% tax on all crypto transactions and a digital rupee to be issued sometime this year or next. Joining us now is Tanvi Ratna, co-founder and CEO of research firm Policy 4.0. Welcome, Tanvi. So, India isn't banning crypto altogether. Is this a compromise? Is this good for India, bad or neutral? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. I think as far as the announcement goes, I think the Finance Minister has also issued some clarifications today. So this isn't really either a compromise or a clarification of any sort. They've said clearly that the regulation around what is legal, what is not on crypto will be part of a separate bill, which hasn't been tabled right now. She said very clearly, and I quote, that we're not going to wait for regulation to tax this. Right, there have been a lot of gains in India over the last 6 to 8 months. There's been a lot of trading activity. So this announcement is really just focused on putting a number to the taxation guidelines that are to be followed on whatever transactions are happening. It's quite a blanket tax slab. It's similar to what taxation is levied on gambling, horse trading, and things like that. It's not necessarily a very good sign. It's not really something that's signaling legalization or the government looking at this in a very positive light.
Hi, Tanvi. It's nice to see you. I guess the argument, though, is that, if they were planning to ban crypto, why bother taxing it, right? So I guess that's sort of the optimistic take on this, because India has suggested a crypto ban in the past, and the fact that they are announcing this about taxation at least is some sort of admission that crypto is something to deal with, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's definitely not, it's definitely a step in the direction towards regulation. It's just not necessarily, the most positive step or the right step necessarily. The nuance here is that, in India, even illegal activity is taxed. So even if you launder money or you have something called benami property, you are taxed on it. You have penalties on it, and if you derive income from anything under our Income Tax Act, any transaction, has to any transaction, there are taxes levied on it, whether or not it's a legal or illegal transaction, right? So if you really read into the fine print, and I think the industry has also started understanding this. There was a lot of concern from traders in India who were talking about how this is really going to diminish trading activity here, because not only is India levying an income tax, which is a 30% flat tax slab, but they're also levying a transaction tax, which is something we call the TDS. It's tax deduction at source. So every single transaction that happens in crypto is going to have a 1% tax levy on it, and it's not very clear just how that's going to be imposed. So every single trade you make, and you can't really offset your losses here, right? Like you can't, the rule is very clear on that. You can't offset any losses you make in trading. So it's quite heavy, penalties. It's quite a heavy burden that I think the crypto ecosystem here has to bear.
So how you mentioned this just now, was that it's not sure how it's going to be collected. You're talking about the 1% transaction tax, but what in general, like who's going to get the burden of ultimately collecting that data? Do they expect, at least, is there any indication that they expect the exchanges to do it, or do they expect the individual traders to collect that data and to willingly submit it to the authorities? And are we seeing even some offshore solutions of traders looking to find a way to trade offshore and repatriate their gains back to India?
Yeah, those are great questions. So, our think tank essentially works on the regulatory aspects. So we work with different agencies. I've myself worked with the Prime Minister in the past. And so, just to give you some sense of how this is being thought of, even internally, I mean, there isn't so much by way of exemption in these rules. There isn't so much by way of tiers or nuance in terms of, this will be taxed differently or will be taxed less to any degree. When you look at what the ecosystem is doing, there was actually, according to data that we looked at in India, there's been a very rapid migration of capital out of Indian soft wallets that were in Indian exchanges and into foreign overseas wallets. The bulk of thinking, I think, within the policy circles is to rely on exchanges. And that is also something that is now under reconsideration because DeFi, NFTs, the Web3 play is quite big in India. So at the moment, there's focus on the exchanges are very well capable of levying these transaction taxes, but it does hurt their business as well. Exchanges do make money out of transactions, right? And so the math on this is really going to affect everybody.
Tanvi, we're very lucky to have you here because you're an expert on central bank digital currencies. You authored a very, very extensive report on China's central bank digital currency. And so part of this new announcement is India saying that they are going to launch their own central bank digital currency either this year or next. What do we know about the digital rupee? It's a little bit mysterious to me. So what do we know about it?
Yeah, I think definitely on the digital rupee, the government's been vocal about their intent to launch it since 2019. So if you remember, there was an infamous report from the Ministry of Finance which recommended banning of virtual assets. But even there, it said very clearly that we are going to issue a digital rupee, and it had chapters on India's intent. And I think over the last few months, like not a lot of this knowledge is public, but we have done some work around the digital rupee, and there are certain pilots, features, functionalities that are being experimented with. So I do expect that the Indian digital rupee will be fairly advanced because, we are starting from a pretty good place in India as far as fintech goes. We have the India stack, we have an instant payment settlement rail, which is one of the most advanced in the world. It's called the UPI. And we have digital identity and stuff like that. So, a lot of the infrastructure is actually in place for India for rolling out a digital rupee, which is very different from other countries. So there is a lot of advanced experimentation underway. So that is going to be announced from what we hear from the second quarter of this year.
So given your expertise on China's CBDC, we can't let you go without asking one question about it. We're about to launch the Beijing Olympics. Now, there has been so much press about how the Beijing Olympics are going to be the showcase for China's CBDC. But, with COVID and other restrictions, it seems like that's gotten a little bit scaled back. What exactly do you think we'll see at the Beijing Olympics as far as the CBDC is concerned?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. I think all of us, all the central bankers I know, are really looking forward to that. I think there were some trials within China, like they looked at some machines where you just put in Forex notes and you get the digital yuan on your app, right? As they have looked at this whole foreign exchange integration with the digital yuan. They have looked at the identity piece. How do you get foreigners onboarded in a verified way and things like that. So I think from their side they are quite ready. But yes, now you do see a lot of debate on the digital yuan. Even now, as we're speaking, Politico is holding a sort of Twitter Spaces on this, where there's a lot of controversy, right now around the Beijing Olympics. So I think at the end of the day, as we all know, like it's not really the tech that's going to hamper CBDC adoption. It's really going to be politics. It's really going to be great power politics, right? And so I think now the whole CBDC and game has sort of moved into that theater as far as China is concerned.